And we're live.
Hello.
Is Shelly frozen just for me, or
am I frozen?
Everybody. Perfect beginning, Shelly.
Yeah. Of course.
Perfect timing.
Internet's
tired where you are. You good?
Well, welcome. I'm super excited to be here today. We have an all-star panel. We have Duncan here. Hi, Duncan. And we got Bibi. Where are you at?
I'm in the Netherlands and in Amsterdam. So
in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And then we have James.
Hey, how are you doing?
How are you? And where are you at?
Yeah, very good. So I'm in the northwest of the UK.
Got it. Lovely. And then Duncan, we got a chance to preview his presentation yesterday, and I got to say, you guys are in for a very special treat. I want to encourage you guys to chat with us in the live chat. Please submit your questions. We're going to try to get to as many of them as we possibly can live. But we're going to let Duncan take it away. I'm super excited to listen to what you have to tell us about link building. We all that's my personal struggle being a techie. So thank you for joining us today.
Coolio. Duncan.
Cool.
There.
Yeah, just had a massive lag on all the sound there.
Yeah.
The joys of all being at home. It's finished now.
The joys of tech, right?
Yeah. The joys of home Wi-Fi connections.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so hi everybody. My presentation today is all about when links set websites on fire from a technical perspective. Okay, so today we're going to cover how we define link impact. We're going to look at two fascinating case studies. We're going to look at how you can earn links through amazing content, and then we're going to summarize everything. Okay, so before we start, I just want to go through some amazing resources that can really help you if you're looking to build links. So this presentation is all about how we analyze the effectiveness of great link building. So firstly, the magic of link building, which is headed up by Nitin Manchanda, which is a webinar that's on the SEMrush channel. Then the ultimate guide to link building, which is headed up by Eric Ward and Gary French, which is available on Amazon. And then finally, Matt Leclerc, which is a great audio book, SEO Debunked, which is great for sort of organizing your link prospects into silver prospects and gold prospects. Okay, so let's get into this. So link impact, what do we think? Okay, so my definition of the highest SEO impact from a backlink is this. Okay, so when I'm looking for a website in terms of its power, I'm looking at its overarching authority, which could be judged by the amount of brand search that the website gets. It could be, have we heard of this as a household name? You know, there are people in the industry that will look at things like Moz rank and SEMrush rank, which can be kind of indicators. And I'd look at things in that order. So, you know, is it a powerful authority that we've heard of with lots of brand search? Also, domain-wide traffic, so estimated traffic, or potentially, if you can find out a website's GA traffic, page level content relevance and context, as well as does the the page itself actually gain additional traffic as the page gets indexed in Google. Page level ranking, so over time, does that page actually rank in its own right? And ideally, does it rank for keywords that are related to the recipient website? And then link context, so is it a strong positive vote semantically? So I went out with this definition onto my LinkedIn, out to my connections, and said, well, what does everyone think? Okay, so this isn't a sort of data-driven kind of definition. This is from my experience. And so 93% of people kind of agree with me. I did feel like it's a little bit of a close question, but nonetheless, look pretty solid. So we use this at Spike as our kind of blueprint for, defining the best possible impact from a backlink. Some interesting comments that came off of the back of the thread. So here's one from Chris Algar from Sites Cottages, the head of SEO there. So he simply said, not all links are created equal. And so this is an important thing, very simple, but it's very common for companies to come to us and say, can you get us 5 links a month? Can you get us 30 links a quarter? And it's not really the right way to look at things. The way to look at things, if you're looking for organic search growth, is to look for ticking all of those important factors in terms of relevancy, context, and overarching authority and page level prominence. Another great kind of comment that I got on that thread was from Emil from Digital Score. So picking up on the fact that Google's always said that the link-based kind of algorithm is a voting system. So not all votes are created equal. And the votes with the most cash and loudest megaphones mean more. So I don't like to mix my politics with SEO, but it's a good and memorable kind of way of looking at these things. So, not all votes are equal, backing up kind of the previous quote. So we've got to think of websites and their influence and their power and how that can translate into SEO traction. So just looking at a case study. So this first case study goes back to 2019, and we started to do quite a lot of work in the EAT space. So medical websites, nutrition sites, supplement sites, and this was so after the medical update in 2018, July 2018, and then the June 2019, which is a bit of a beast. And so we started to notice that there were case studies floating around on the web about how links were generating quite a lot of power, and that maybe Google were looking for a link to tick expertise, authority, trust. And so we worked with this company, which is an online pharmacy. And in August 2019, there was a shortage of HRT patches. And so Daily Mail covered this story, and they said that women are forced to buy HRT from abroad. And it's a really kind of fact-based kind of article that was all about Evorel patches. And the pharmacy that we were working with sold that drug. They sold the HRT patches. So they then had a reactive PR opportunity. So an opportunity to provide a journalist, so in this case, the Mail Online journalist, with a quote as an authority in the space of providing these drugs. So the company owner had the Daily Mail Online's mobile number. They got in touch with the independent pharmacy, and then the news article then had a tasteful kind of comment provided by the company owner, and that showed a great piece of kind of authoritative kind of commenting. So that linked through to the homepage, but all of the context and everything about the page was all about HRT patches. It was all about the shortage, and the fact that the independent pharmacy had this drug provided them with a lot of sales growth over the time. But let's look at what happened in terms of SEO results. So back in May 2019, this website had 0 top 3s in terms of anything related to the search term containing HRT. And then when we got to December 2019, it had 8 top 3s in anything related to HRT. And you can see that they prospered past that point in terms of further rankings. And then in December 2019, this is just purely looking at their users. There's no kind of revenue information here, but I can say that they had a huge win on that side. But yeah, 615% kind of year-on-year users growth. So a huge kind of commercial result. So the page, the Daily Mail online page, had 13 backlinks. One of those from a trade website called pharmacynetworknews.com. And then the page itself ranked for 25 keywords, all product specific to HRT. And then within those 25 keywords, 3 of them are product specific on page 1. And all of that just from one link. So then if we just move on to my second case study, this is the most recent one. So looking in 2021. So this is an e-commerce website, and it starts with an SEO guy, me, going to our head of outreach, Andre, and saying, right, we've got a category page. I really need to get it ranking strongly. Can you get a couple of amazing links to this page? And that was all I gave him as a brief. Not impressive, but Andre's a bit of a whiz. Did some ideation and went down a very sort of informational, needs-based route, very simplistic. So we created a long-form how-to article and outreached that article, and it was placed on one high authority website. So this client's under NDA, so we can't divulge the exact kind of content example, but I'll talk you through what happened next. So this specific page had 0 top 3 rankings back in September 2020. In February 2021, it's got 25 top 3s, all very kind of like high money keywords. So the article went live October the 19th, 2020, and there was a huge kind of rise in rankings. And we ticked all of these boxes: overarching authority, domain-wide traffic, content relevance, context, page level traffic, page level ranking, and then link context. So if we just look at the domain strength of the linking website through to our client's website. So Cosmo, loads of brand search, household brand, everyone's heard of it. And then according to SimilarWeb, around about 58 million visits per month. So, you know, no questions in terms of domain strength there. Then we will look at page level relevance and context. We can see the website gets like a really strong conversion rate on all its normal traffic from PPC, SEO, etc. So it converts at 2.92%. But interestingly, any traffic that was coming through from the backlink was converting at 2.3%. So a massive sign of page level relevance and context of the link, where the downstream traffic was bringing in sales at a really sort of like decent conversion rate. Now, it's highly debatable whether Google would actually use this information from a UX perspective, but nonetheless, it shows us that we've ticked all those boxes in terms of relevancy. So the page on Cosmo, it's got 20 backlinks, one from Yahoo where the content was syndicated. It ranks for 31 keywords, all product specific, and within those 31, 2 of them are on page 1, again, product specific. All of that from one link. So we're going to say thanks very much for that, Andre. Great result. Okay, so you're probably thinking to yourself, God, we have to do loads of link building. We have to do loads of digital PR. Is one link really enough? So this is an interesting quote from John Muller just from sort of 2 weeks ago. So there could be one really good link from one website out there. It's a really important sign that we should treat this website as something that is relevant just because it has that one link. So this is backing up exactly what we're saying in these case studies from Google, from John there. So as a little bit of a kind of segue, I just wanted to talk about content and how Google really wants us to create relevant content. It's a little bit of an ideal because we can't always do it. We certainly can't always hit the mark. You know, from one website to another website, you know, can be different, and certainly the result doesn't always happen. But I wanted to sort of bring up the topic of earning links and how you can build that into an ongoing kind of part of your plan, part of your strategy. So this is another case study for you where back in 2016, we worked with a lighting website, and they had lots of great FAQs content on the site, lots of highly technical kind of articles for electricians and people working in kind of industrial lighting and things. So we said, well, let's go a little bit broader. Let's go to the consumer. Let's write something about how to wire a light switch. And so they did that. They created a 1,700 word article with images and diagrams, and it ranked really, really well. Got lots of number ones. And what that meant over time is that started to generate links in its own right, which is simple common sense, really, that would happen. So this is referring domains through to this specific article. And none of these were from outreach. It's completely just from it being out on the web, ranking highly on Google. And so these links were from trade websites, electrician websites, electrician forum websites. And so this was just self-fulfilling, you know. So this just meant that the page was getting more and more top 3 rankings. So here you can see, you know, back in kind of 2016, the page just goes up and up and up. And still kind of in the most recent Google update, still getting more top 3 rankings. So an interesting case study. So just to summarize everything that I've chatted about there. So if you can take one thing away from this presentation, it is the belief that one amazing link can catapult a page up the rankings. And we've seen that in recent years and in recent months. I would say that focusing on using inner pages to demonstrate ROI on outreach and PR efforts is a really good thing to do. And then finally, I'd say always make sure that you're running content projects alongside any more proactive PR and outreach activities that are your link earners. And that's everything for my presentation. Thanks very much.
Wow. Well, I can tell you there's definitely a lot of questions going on. That was fantastic. I would love to pick your brain if you are okay with that. As I mentioned earlier, me along with a lot of people, we tend to be, a lot of us are more technical. Maybe we're content writers, you know, and link building can be such a struggle. We've brought in some experts here, and I mean, Bibi, your nickname is literally Bibi the link builder. So we're like, we're brought in some experts here, and I mean, addition. Your nickname is literally Bibi the link builder.
Whoa,
So we're like, we're just brought in some experts here, and your nickname is literally the link.
It's Duncan. It's Duncan.
Somebody's got YouTube on.
Who is that? It's not me.
It's definitely not me. I'm on mute.
I turned it off.
Oh, got it. I'm like, why am I hearing myself echo? You know, it's hard to stand up with it.
So it's just on again. I don't know why.
No worries. All right. Now we got it figured out.
Okay.
So, all right. So we had some really great questions. I want to jump in. Jamin Heller, he actually asked, He said, we advertise in the industry-related directories for backlinks. Some are a few hundred a year. One is actually $1,000. Yikes. How do we evaluate what's an appropriate price and for a directory link?
I'll jump in there. I mean, I think directory links. What I will say, I've not built directory links for most projects for quite a while, but I think it comes down to the general approach that we should be taking to link building as a whole in terms of what's it driving in terms of traffic. You know, one of the big things I say about link building is that would you still do this if Google didn't exist? Now, if you start to look at whether that's driving traffic, whether that's driving leads, sales, whatever it is that you're targeting there, what's the value there? You know, try and define that value outside of just the SEO benefit, and that's how you can, you know, sort of think about it being more valuable. You know, is it driving traffic? I've seen clients stop paying for some of these directories, and you know, on the grounds that they're driving 5-10 hits a year, you know, for hundreds of pounds, hundreds of dollars. That's always a great way. I mean, I often see directories as, in many cases certainly, as those sort of padding links, those foundation links. Nice to have, but what's the cost? Bibi, you've probably got something great to add there.
Oh my God, no. I've never done directory link building, so I have no idea if it works or not. I've never run tests on it. So I actually have no opinion on it. I do know that, you know, for every strategy that you follow, the result depends on the quality of execution. So I think directories can probably work if you do it very well. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are just copying others or being very lazy, and they don't care about where they're dumping their links. So it might work. I have no idea.
Yeah, I know
relevancy in traffic.
Oh, I think it really varies from niche to niche. I mean, you might be a lawyer and you might find that you need to be present in Avo because that's where your audience is and they rank really well. If they rank locally for queries, then I would consider paying to be there. If they don't, heck no, like that's not worth it, especially in today's day and age. If you've been paying for it and you're not getting traffic and that traffic doesn't convert, it wouldn't be worth it in my opinion.
Yeah, I see that Craig Mullins says that local directories in his area drive huge traffic and power. So if you see
qualified traffic, then that's a different objective, isn't it? I think that comes back to that thing of at the outset, what's your goal of being on a certain website, and if it is that it's only for SEO, then a directory is probably a dangerous place. Move on, do something else, do something good.
Those days have long gone.
Absolutely, it's bad times.
Do you want them back though? Would you want them back those days?
Maybe for a day or a week, but
if it works,
the hardest websites that aren't ranking, maybe. But
if it worked, you know, I think it comes back to, you know, black hat, white hat SEO. You know, we should all just be do what work hats. You know what I mean? It should be. And you know, those tactics nowadays, most of them don't work. Yes, they used to. You know, I think most of us here have probably built some really, really dubious links that we wouldn't build today. But does it mean it was the wrong thing to do at the time? Not if it worked.
No, I know a lot of people who would want it back because it was so much easier. You know? Yeah.
I remember the good old days of ranking position 1 in the UK for payday loans on about 150 really, really spammy bought links. But it was great.
I'll tell you, I remember working and doing a lot of technical SEO and putting so much work into user experience and optimizing on page. And then like slowly moving up and then commenting on a blog post would literally instantly get you to bump up. And it was so frustrating in my book because I'm like, how is it that easy to game? So I'm glad those days are behind us. That was definitely a frustrating time. But you mentioned it was a really great point about how sometimes you just need really one good link. And I've seen that happen a lot. It's been several years. I had my client actually ranked really well in a competitive legal space. And then another lawyer got a Huffington Post, link and Like that guy was nowhere until that happened. Of course, back then a lot of those were bought and paid for to get put in there, and now that doesn't happen as much. But speaking of that, because I'm curious about media links and what would be some great how would you go about earning links from like an authoritative media site? This touches more on PR, but do you have any processes that you go through when you have a really great piece of content that's media worthy?
No. Go, Duncan.
Well, no, I was just going to say that I think the second case study that we've got is the type of thing that if it's a needs-based how-to guide that's evergreen, it's a thing of, if there's a period in time, there's a point in time where you think that that's going to resonate again, then you repitch it and you get it back out there, and that it's not like a one-off campaign that goes in and out the door. So the third case study that I gave just wasn't like that. So whilst it was needs based, it's how to wire a light switch. That isn't necessarily something that is gonna kind of resonate with Cosmopolitan or something like that. So that's more a thing of where I think that's where the nuances lie, where you might kind of create a guide that's right for a load of kind of B2C publications and newspapers, and therefore you can go through that outreach process again a year, 6 months down the line.
Yeah, I have a question for Duncan, actually. When you talk about link earners, the ones that are not like sexy hot, for the media, the ones that are how do you need to have a strong domain to make them rank and earn the links? If it's a news site, it probably won't, right?
I think in that example, like where you're on a thread on a forum, these are things that these links stay live forever and a day, and I quite like them, and I don't think it's a thing where you sort of say, but that isn't on a site that's got 58 million visits per month. If there's then a consistent thread of, say, half a dozen small websites that are all linking, and Google can see through the context of the page that there's a lot of people that are sort of bigging up this one resource, then I wouldn't really worry too much about the actual domains that are linking through. It's just it's almost similar to local link building. So if you look at the domain, and it's like a 10-12-year-old domain, and it's like there's keywords in the domain, and it all just it looks like it's been there forever and ever, and it's an electrical forum that's always going to be there for electricians. It's probably going to give a decent bit of weight through to that page.
Some great insight. Go ahead. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
No, I was going to say, I'm a digital PR, I spend all day, every day building links from the media. And what I was going to say is, it comes down to very, very simply adding value. And, whether we're talking about linkable assets, whether we're talking about newsjacking, reactive PR, whatever tactic we're using, you have to add value. And I think that number one thing, you have to be thinking, people can be linkable assets, people's expertise, their knowledge, but you have to think, how are we doing something different? Obviously yesterday in the UK was the budget, and there was a thread going around Twitter where a journalist shared his inbox, and there was literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pitches from PRs in the space of about 20 minutes once the budget got announced. And I think, one of the big discussion points that came out of that was that you have to add value and you have to say something different. If you want to land coverage and links from the press, one, there has to be a reason to link. Otherwise, you will end up with brand mentions. Now, of course, there's a lot of talk going on at the moment about inferred mentions, inferred link. To me, we still want those links. But, if we look at how we get that, a journalist typically, well, at least at the bigger media publications, they rarely link to a website's homepage. Why? Because it doesn't add editorial value. That's advertising. There has to be something that adds value, and it comes back to links being navigational. If there is a great piece of content worth linking to, then that's one of the best ways. But that content has to add value to the journalist's article. Just simply commenting or adding, sharing something that a journalist knows that can write themselves, it doesn't cut it anymore. It did in 2015. Now you have to add value, use people, use knowledge, use expertise, and really champion doing something a little bit different and adding, add value to a journalist. Help them out. That's almost as simple as it gets.
Right.
So how do you find that, James?
How do we what? Sorry.
How do you find that? How do you do the content ideation around that?
Yeah, so in terms of that, clients, businesses are, spokespeople within a business are one of the best sources of inspiration. So as an example, when we're coming up with ideas, concepts, whether it's for reactive PR or sort of linkable asset led, speak to clients. We will go and sit down with clients and we will say, okay, look, what's going on in your industry right now? What's your take on this, on that? We use Google Trends, we use BuzzSumo, we use various tools to understand what's hot in an industry right now, what people want to talk about, and then we get an expert's take on it. Now, typically journalists they're writing, let's take personal finance. Most of those journalists are covering personal finance as a broad topic. They don't have detailed expertise on pensions, on mortgages. Right. That's where you can use a spokesperson to really, really add value. Something that you can't just get by running a Google search and taking the top results, which, is the other side of it. That's what Duncan's talking about with link earners. Very, very, very powerful tactic. And journalists do that. We know, simply by, the example that Duncan shared is a great example of that. Journalists will go run a query through Google and get a source to cite there. But that's almost, you can't control that in the same way as really adding value and standing out. So talking to experts is a very, very great source of inspiration. And I think, it's a real testament to how certainly the digital PR side of things has moved on in the past 2 or 3 years. And certainly the way I approach it is, how can we use digital PR to amplify who a client is, what they're doing, their products, their services, rather than being, what can we do to land links? Which 2 or 3 years ago, we were all doing.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good point. It's the space has changed tremendously, and it does require so much more hands-on cooperation with our clients and honestly teamwork together. How are you guys explaining this to your clients, getting them to change their state of mind and the way they think? Because for me, I just do my best with my clients to position them as the expert, so they're the go-to anytime. For instance, my plumber, we here in Houston, we have the big freeze, but that was a media opportunity for my plumbing client. And so, but that hasn't, back in the day, we used to handle everything for them. They didn't have to worry about links and stuff. So how have you handled that change? What's your message to people out there that right now?
Yeah, I think, again, it's understanding the value beyond links. I think, you talk to a small business owner as an example, and links still mean very, very little. Rankings, revenue mean something, but links still mean very little in some extent. So when we look at it from that perspective, one of the things we have to be saying is, okay, are those links driving traffic? Are they driving revenue? Are they driving conversions? Because if they are, those conversations are so much easier to have. If we can say, okay, this link has driven you 200 sessions and even a couple of leads, couple of conversions, sales, then that is a very, very different conversation to, links which drive traffic, links which get clicked. Make those conversations so much easier. A great example, a client that we work with in the US, actually, we landed them some coverage about a new product service they were launching on bank rates. And that drove, I think, just under 400 leads in 24 hours from one piece of media coverage. Now, suddenly, yes, we are building links, but suddenly it becomes about so much more than that, and almost talking in the language that business owners, that marketing managers want to see, which is revenue.
And that's sort of PR out of the context of SEO, isn't it? Is that PR that predates the internet could always have that impact, that organic impact alongside advertising. Yeah. Which I think is that's that thing of almost kind of coming full circle with SEO, that it's a faculty of marketing, isn't it?
But if those links aren't there, yes, you might see a slight increase in brand searches. we still need those links. We still need those links, because somebody consumes content, they consume an article and see a business referenced. Very few of them will go to the effort of going and searching that brand name, but they will click the link.
So that's a good point. You mentioned brand mentions. So what are your thoughts about how a brand mention helps from an SEO standpoint? Does it influence rankings? Do you think it will in the future? That sounds.
I think it's a soft sell, isn't it? Really. So that's the sort of thing that you see on Search Engine Journal. Like periodically from John Muller, brand mentions don't have the same hit as links. I think in the future you'd like to think that would provide as much weight as a backlink. Because you're if you work in PR and you're working dead hard and you get some really decent content onto some fantastic websites, I think it's quite demoralizing if you can't convert that into links. And over the years, like when I used to work client side as a marketer, try and work with PR agencies and so why didn't you get any links here? And like, how do you mean? And so there's been that educational process over the years that people have gone through to actually work out that the tactics and psychology behind kind of converting coverage into links. But I would agree with James that is part of them becoming interwoven into the web, is that as someone's on their user journey, they read about something. So you're always going to get loads of e-commerce related content that have strong citations to e-tailers, and if you're positioned against the likes of Amazon and Currys and all these big domains, then you're going to get good link power from those types of articles that pop up all the time. And a lot of those link conversions will come through things like reactive PR. So these are things that are helping users. They're helping websites get downstream traffic and then ultimately kind of SEO value alongside it.
Yeah,
right.
I think we're a long way from brand mentions influencing rankings in the same way. I mean, I think I've seen many examples of brand mentions driving some spike in brand search, which I believe is a great thing. I believe there is some value there in increasing brand. Google wants us to build brands, so if we can do anything to increase brand searches, then that's a good thing. But I would want that link every time. And I totally agree with you, Duncan. That when you do land that coverage without a link, it never gets it will always be disheartening. Certainly to an SEO.
Same thoughts on Nofollow links, and any input into maybe the new attributes for like rel sponsored or UGC, those type of things?
I think if you take those three case studies, so you've got an EAT kind of case study, like an online pharmacist, you've got an e-com site, and then another electrician e-com site. I firmly believe if all of those had Nofollow links on, that you get the same result these days. I think as a tag, I think it's almost kind of null and void, really. I find it frustrating when we work with companies and they'll kind of say, well, yeah, but you've got a Nofollow tag on there. But if we've done our job in the kind of more kind of needs-based kind of PR activity, proper company stories about their products and services that's like highly relevant, then I think if it's got no follow attribute on it, then not got a problem with that at all, and we'll always argue that point with clients.
What I kind of like is that you of course have an ideal link that you go for, right? So if you end up with the ideal link, great. But if you limit everything you do because you only want that ideal link, you actually lose opportunities, because a brand mention somewhere or a social share could have consequences in the future. So of course it's not what you're getting paid for or what your strategy is. But if you start closing everything off and you only want to go for one link thing, you're missing so much. So I like when clients are open for experiments, when they're okay with some results being no follow or mention or whatever, because in the end it's just gonna spread out like an oil thing, and you're going to catch other stuff as well. So while you have to have the focus on the most SEO optimized, it's not good to close yourself off on other opportunity.
Yeah, and I think another one to add, if we look at some of the top tier news websites, which, yes, that most of those are adding a nofollow right now, then firstly, can the search engines ignore links from these highly authoritative websites who have blanket nofollowed? You take some of, the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, those publications, they are nofollowing every single link. Now, we can probably sit here all day and, and agree on the fact that those links have to add weight because of the authority behind those. But also, I've seen many, many examples every single week where a nofollow link on a top tier media site will turn into secondary coverage. And I don't mean syndication, I mean where a smaller publication sees that story and then goes, okay, we're going to write about that story too. And those links are followed. So nofollow links can be a great catalyst for earning further followed links, which again, it's part of the process. It's out certainly from the digital PR side. Nofollow is largely out of our control. Every single week we receive emails saying from clients saying, can you please try and get that link converted from a nofollow into a follow? The answer is no. Most of those nowadays are set at publication level. A few years ago, maybe, but now it's set site-wide.
Yeah, so you brought up syndicated content. What are your thoughts on that?
From an SEO perspective or a wider business value perspective?
Probably both. I'd say.
From an SEO perspective, let's talk about it. Say regional syndication. Now, those, let's take some of the news networks over here in the UK. They will syndicate to anything between, I think, 30 and 120 sites. Now, they will usually all canonicalize back to one URL. Now, if we go and look at what canonicalization does, it's essentially strengthening that first link. So, yes, it's a good thing. Certainly no harm, but. And this is where it gets really powerful. And I've had instances where clients have in the first instance, dismissed syndication as having no value. And then they see the traffic. Now, it depends on the stories, but regional publications can have large reach. We work with a toy retailer and they do crazy things. Last week, they gave away 1 million toys. In January, they did a penny sale, Lego for a penny. We can land that in regional syndication. Those links get clicked. Those links drive sales. Suddenly, it's about so much more than SEO. So from an SEO perspective, not going to do any harm. Yes, I believe, there is some strength there. Certainly, there is one great link that, that is the canonical link, but they can drive traffic. They can drive sales and increase that reach. Again, further increasing brand search.
Someone actually asked for some tips about syndication.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you can.
I saw that. Yeah. So I think that was. I saw that about.
I have it here. Shannon says it is difficult to get things syndicated. Do we keep writing with good SEO and hope to get syndicated? Some of us work with very small teams and doing outreach is difficult time-wise. Advice.
It's probably good to say at that point, advice from Google is to not syndicate content because it's against the terms of use. So that go into it knowing that, and it's kind of okay. So, if again, it comes back to kind of business objectives. Yeah. So if it's important for you to get content in front of people at a local or hyper local level, then fantastic. Then a regionalized kind of play on a kind of PR outreach campaign is going to be decent, but there's always that kind of hesitation in my mind that if it's mass syndication, which could be hundreds and hundreds of websites, then that would make me feel a little bit nervous when you know that you're going against Google's terms of use. But I think I'd say again, like from a UK basis, if you're talking about 40 or 50 domains, when we've had it at Spike, it's kind of like it's happened. So the journalist has just done it, at a kind of higher level, and it gets splattered across 50 domains. And that's happened. Yeah. Canonicalizes back to one page. Google doesn't respect its own canonical tags, so they're all indexed. And our kind of experience has been pretty minimal SEO value. And I think to that end, like James's example of if you get traffic and sales from it, then most businesses want
Right.
traffic and
Absolutely,
sales.
yeah.
So
I think that question is also referring to sort of newswires. I've seen a couple of comments here about newswires, sort of the PR newswires. I wouldn't waste the time on those. Now, I think the difference there is, I think, you know, to give context, what me and Duncan are talking about here is regional syndication. So in the UK, that's the likes of Johnson Press, the various news networks, you know, regional publishers syndicating content across their own network. In the US, a lot of radio stations do it. Some of the USA Today localized sites, I don't know the name of the network, but they syndicate as well across multiple publications. On the newswire side, that is essentially going, we're going to pay $50, $100, $200 to syndicate a piece of content. Now, there are sites that will take that content and upload it as it is. I see absolutely no value in that. We used to use it maybe 7 or 8 years ago to try and aid further PR coverage, but I wouldn't waste the money. I would go personalized outreach to the journalists.
So to journalists, what would be your tips on a local level to promote your syndicated? Is it directly to the journalist, or who runs that usually at an organization?
Yeah, at the publication. So I mean, there are great media databases out there. A great, really low cost one is called a news tip. Obviously there's Cision, there's Viewleo, there's Gorkana, which are a lot more costly. But turn to Twitter. You know, most journalists have their email address on Twitter. A lot are on the publication. You know, go check out their author profile. You know, their author profile on the site. But there has to be a local hook. You know, there has to be a reason to sell in that story.
That's true. And I see a lot of people, they submit stuff and they don't really take the time to actually see if it's a good fit for the publication. Like, really make sure you do the legwork. You know what they're publishing, and that it needs to align properly. Don't be pushing stuff. It just comes across terrible and you burn bridges for sure.
Yeah, and I think going back to the newswires, you know, there are so many PRs and content marketers pushing out great stories directly to journalists now. They don't need to turn to the newswires for stories the same way they maybe did 5 years ago.
Okay, so we just saved Shannon's life because she's like, my company asked me to do both, and I've been struggling with the value. Thank you for answering about Newswire and Syndicated.
No worries.
We saved another SEO.
Oh, good.
Nice. John actually asked if working with influencers, would that take the pressure off of needing links? Interesting question.
It's not a part of marketing, but I would always try to get the link from the influencer as well. You know, I've done influencer marketing, and it was just for product reviews, but I always wanted the link back. You know.
Yeah, I think from a pure SEO perspective, influencer marketing is like an evolution of blogger outreach. Yeah, so blogger outreach becomes a kind of, you know, greasing the palms of a blogger. You know, that blogger then kind of rebrands themselves as an influencer. Who ends up on, you know, Instagram, you know, kind of scantily clad, taking photos of themselves and then charging thousands of pounds or dollars to have a necklace on them or something like that. So so to that end, if you can get some links along the way, then that's really what is kind of paid for, link building to that end. So it isn't something that, you know, when we're putting together like an organic search strategy to kind of, you know, get some rocket fuel behind an e-commerce project, we don't start in the early stages with influencer marketing. I think it's a fascinating area, but it isn't kind of core to when we're kind of bolting together kind of technical SEO and then kind of on-point PR. So it's, I don't know. I think again, it comes back to that thing of if you're starting an e-commerce project from scratch and you want to get your name out there, then we've started to see a lot of B2C companies start with influencer marketing because they want to get their brand out there and they want to get on, you know, where their audience is. They want to be on Insta, or they want to be on TikTok, or wherever their audience is. So yeah, I get that.
You need big pockets for it.
Shannon is really, I feel bad for her. Look, she said, thank you, Duncan, for that comment. We tried influencers and it wasn't a good experience. It sounds like We're having a really hard time, Shannon. We should help you out. You should tweet at us or something on Twitter, and then we'll look at your stuff and help back you up towards
Absolutely.
your.
Not all influencers are created equal. That's for sure. Shannon also, she asked a good one, and she said one of their competitors somehow got a ton of backlinks from Wikipedia. I tried doing the same, but Wikipedia isn't letting me. How do we compete? So I'm sure we get a lot of questions about Wikipedia. Anyone want to touch on that?
What was the question she wants? Oh, I got help me read it.
There we go.
Oh, I would just go for more relevant stuff. It's going to give you referral traffic, but that's me. I don't know. And maybe
I'm a fan of Wikipedia, like getting cited on Wikipedia, and I have been for years. And again, they're all kind of no-followed links, but I wouldn't necessarily kind of say, right, okay, this website that we want to outrank, it's picked up on Wikipedia loads. So what we need to do is get picked up on Wikipedia loads. I don't think that plays out as the right strategy necessarily, because if you're trying to get picked up on Wikipedia and that's not working because the Wikipedians see that as advertising, then you're going in too hard. And in black and white terms, you need to be notable to be on Wikipedia. And if a Wikipedia geek thinks you're not notable, then you're probably going to find it really difficult to have your own Wikipedia page. So some of the techniques and some of the case studies kind of laid out in the presentation will be where we would, all the good things we've chatted about in terms of like the type of work Bibi does, and James in terms of digital PR is make real stories about real brands, and that will probably combat that company that's got maybe that company's been around over 100 years, and that's why they're on Wikipedia. Maybe you've been around for 5 or 10 years and you just haven't got that heritage and that background. But I don't think that that's anything to worry about. You don't need to have the same off-site footprint. You can do things like link gap analysis, and that's great work. But if you then see, oh no, this website's all over Wikipedia, I need to be. I don't see that as fruitful.
But it's also, you have to go back to your why. If you want the backlinks on Wikipedia because your competitor has it as well.
Doesn't make sense, does it really?
Go get something they haven't got.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally,
you can try and go for it, but if it's not working, then try something else. Try to find a gap, a corner they're not looking in.
And find a gap on on that Wikipedia article and create content that fills that gap and try and get it cited as a source on there.
Oh, I've done. Yeah. I know what you mean.
Adding value. We adding value. Add value, and everything becomes so much easier.
Absolutely. Janine actually asked, can you give more examples of that one great link that you scored? Bibi and James, have you guys had any great links that you've scored that you've cheered about? Let's hear some examples.
Well, I think she meant like the one link with the big impact, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've had links that I was really proud of, but I can't say, I can't actually reverse engineer that one link had such
it's quite difficult, isn't it? Like if you think about the amount of pieces of coverage, articles, outreach, and successful kind of PR coverage that you get, it's so difficult. I mean, you think about like hundreds and hundreds of links that we were arranged at Spike last year, and the year before that, and I've cited 2 examples that provide that hit. And the reason why I wanted to put that together is to sort of say the bar is that high, it's become higher and higher and higher. But if you tick all of those points, then it just like it can be transformational in terms of like money and traffic. It really is powerful. But I tend to think that from when I've studied brands that we don't work with, that from an e-commerce perspective, where companies are chasing like coverage for their category pages and their product pages, that type of one great link kind of hit result can definitely come from that, because you're talking about an inner page, so you can track it, you can see that growth over time. And so that might be pretty difficult to relate back to one particular piece of coverage, but certainly that is a win for someone who's creating a best gaming headset review, because they get lots of relevant content, and then it's a win for the user because they go straight through to Amazon's gaming headset category page, and it's a good user experience for the person clicking on it. So I think that's where you can tend to see that sort of traction.
I like that. All right, so we do have time for one more, and I'm not sure, I don't want to mispronounce the name, but Sapna, he asked how to get a good rank in Google if the company's product is unique and there's not very many similar products on the market. I'm guessing maybe these are more unique searches, or it's a new type of product entering the market. What would be your thoughts there?
Could you pull it up, because I want to see it?
Yeah.
Visual.
That'd be good.
I think I got it up. Yeah.
And then we see. Hi, Sapna. Val. All right. Let me read it.
So if the company product is unique, then it'll have a unique product title. If it's unique, as in they've manufactured a product, then it's going to rank in its own right, and there's going to be that's going to be maybe a little bit gradual, but it is one of the things that we've seen works so fantastically over the years, is that if you create a product and then you market it through other channels like Facebook paid social and Google Shopping, Google paid search period, that will then get that product sold. It'll get people Googling it, and that will build that product search anyway, and you're going to be ranking top for it, regardless, depending on your supply chain. So if that product then goes through marketplaces, so you might have problems getting outranked by Amazon, for instance, or other companies that you supply your own product to. So that would be, I guess, the only caveat to that.
Go shout about it. If saying here that it's the product is unique and there's nothing similar, then go and tell any relevant journalists about it. Go and tell journalists. Go and tell, again, maybe going back to influencer. Again, not from an SEO perspective, but go tell people about it. Share that product. Shout about why it's great, and create that demand, and drive those searches for that product.
Yeah, and aside from the product searches, I mean, the pain points probably are not unique, so you can try to rank higher on that and market that more, because it's a unique solution to probably a common problem.
Right. Honestly, it might be kind of an advantage being new to the market on something, especially if it touches on a pain point. If there's a demand for it, you can definitely use that to generate some excitement around it. And then usually those backlinks will come from that excitement. So I'd say you're in a good spot. Just more promotion, PR type. You guys have been amazing. So much information. The chat has been on fire. There's so many good comments in there, and we actually, I think Gareth and Jim, that you guys had some really great insight to some of the questions in there as well. So if you haven't read through all the chat comments, please do. I want to thank you guys for joining us today. I totally impressed by your skills and your presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Shelly.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to next one.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.